Huddleston. Robert Huddleston is a design leader at Capital One. He's both a CUA and a CXA. He's a creative thinker and problem solver. And at Capital One, he did the first scalable design patterns, languages, and systems. He's one of the leaders of a multidisciplinary product design team who delivers products and services for small business customers. Please welcome Robert Huddleston.
Hi, thanks everyone. Thanks, Noah. And I know that I'm probably keeping people from lunch or possibly dinner, wherever you might be. So I'll try to keep this short. Let me start by sharing screen and get going. All right. I hope everyone can see that. So I am going to talk to everyone today about leading in the next new normal. An interesting segue from Apola's earlier conversation about the new normal that we're all a part of now. Just to start real quickly, one thing I'm not going to talk about today will be leadership principles or styles. You're not going to hear me talk much about things like servant leadership or active listening, empathy, or strategy and recruiting. These things, however, will be all inferred or implied in the stories that I'll share with you. Most of these stories will be shared from my own perspectives or experiences in my workplace, workplace is really the focus of this topic also. So with that, I'll just start jumping in. What we will discuss is what leadership is, or at least my opinion about what leadership is. And in fact, what I hope to do is actually demystify what leadership is. I'll talk about leadership during the pandemic, the last 12 plus months that we've all been experiencing. And then I'll give a few ideas or predictions of what I think is next in this new normal. As much as we all want to return to this pre-pandemic normal, I'm not 100% confident that that's even possible. I think we've learned so much and we've experienced so much in this period of time that as we move forward, my hope is that we take a lot of those positive things that we've learned, especially in the workplace, and we are pushing them forward. So we'll discuss that a little bit. So what exactly is leadership and what does it look like? Well, we of course can go to the dictionary for a very standard definition, but the thing I'd really like to focus on is that leadership shows up in action. Good leadership has positive impact, whether on a few or on many. And leaders, good leaders also inspire others. And really that's where I'm going to focus some of my attention to, or most of my attention to today. So I'm going to start with a very default view of what leadership might look like in an organization. I'm sure this feels and will look very familiar to all of us here. Likely starting at the top with some sort of executive leader who has several direct reports making up their senior leadership team, each of whom have several direct reports making up their specific leadership teams, and on again, having direct reports who make up different variations of leadership teams by levels, maybe have different levels of Zoom, different bodies of scope, different volume of scope, or a different discipline or focus area that they are leading. And if you work in a big organization like I do, you likely see this sort of model just exponentially repeated over and over across multiple organizations within the larger corporation. But the one statement I want to make, and I hope is heard very loud and clear, is that title and level does not make the leader. Regardless of level, regardless of title, we all, no matter how junior or senior, have opportunities to step in and step up and to inspire, to inform, to influence decisions. So my hope here is by the end of the day that whether you're a VP, a people manager, whether you are brand new to a team or to UX design or product design as a career, that the thing you take away with is that there are moments for all of us to step in and to lead and to inform and influence others and to show up in a positive way. So to answer the question, what do leaders look like? They could be power couples, they could be politicians, or perhaps both. They can certainly be celebrities, founders, CEOs, perhaps royalty, but they're also rock stars, artists, rule breakers, the first of their kind. But more importantly, they're everyday people. They are people who, in a moment, will stand up, will use their voice, will speak up, speak loudly, will act loudly, and improve the world that they may live in. That could be, again, that could be very small, it could be very large. That level of impact could be felt by one person or by many. And that impact can be long lasting. But the important thing to remember here is that leadership comes in many shapes, sizes, colors. It comes from all of us. And with that, individuals, teams, organizations, companies at large all have their moments to lead, to influence, and to inspire. And how these leaders show up in different contexts could be very different. It could be very similar. Again, the context is key there. So leadership during the pandemic, I want to focus some attention here, and I'm going to share this in a couple different stories that I'll have to tell everyone. Again, coming from my own personal experiences, the things that I've witnessed, the things that I've been part of, either at Capital One or not. So I hope that even within the context of the world I live in, that these stories will all be very relevant for each of you. Obviously, 12, 15 months ago, early 2020, the world shut down due to the pandemic. Offices were closing, businesses were closing, schools were closing. This meant that our worlds were colliding all under one roof, often at one table. We were working, we were teaching, we had school, work, life all happening in the same room, in the same household. And this created a lot of interesting opportunity. It also created a lot of struggle, a lot of hardship. It's challenging for any of you out there as parents have probably lived through this scenario where you are trying to be the best employee you can be, perhaps in the architecture of your organization, a leader, but also taking care of your family members, your children, when there's no daycare, when they're at home trying to learn, and you're becoming that teacher also. So for the sake of discussing leadership during the pandemic, I'd like to really focus on a couple different perspectives, that being the corporate view, the organizational view, the team view, and then us as individuals, how we show up and might have opportunity to lead. So at the corporate level, we of course saw our leaders making really difficult decisions very early on, closing offices. And in fact, for myself, I've now been in an office since March 11th of 2020. And that, of course, this not an easy decision to make, but for the right reasons, for the personal safety and the health of the employees. This meant that a lot of investment was being put into remote working technology and infrastructure, especially for a large organization. The larger the organization, the more challenging that effort was. In many cases, home office supplies were provided to make sure that each of us going home, especially once realizing that we weren't coming back in a few weeks or even a few months, that we could effectively carry on and do our job and have space and supplies and the equipment necessary to do that. There was an increased focus on employee health and the needs of the individuals, especially as many of us were faced with very similar and common hardships at home during this time. There was, of course, the individual needs and the differences that, depending on your circumstances, may surface. And that's not to suggest that companies weren't already focusing on employee health. It just means that during this time, many companies put a heightened focus on each of our health and our well-being. And this was also related to our customers. Customer facing, forgiveness and support becomes a priority at the corporate level, especially for us at a financial institution. So a quick example, just to share, we witnessed very quickly as the pandemic started to rage on, examples of paying forward to our customers, thinking about credit card and finances, and the hardships that were faced throughout the early days of the pandemic and still today, with joblessness, with quarantines, whether causing layoff or business closures, and during that time, maybe some suspended work opportunity. Paying credit cards, paying bills became a challenge for many people across the country. And so hearing and seeing and witnessing our company decide to forgive or forego credit card payments, or forgive or forego interest payments, or penalties for late payments, this really signaled to, I hope, all of us at the company that our leaders were putting our customers and their well-being first and foremost, and that was more important than the bottom line. And those are the types of leaders that personally I want to follow, and that's makes me very proud, makes me very excited to work for a company that would take such bold leaps and moves forward to consider the customer needs and the impacts of the pandemic on those customers. At the organizational level, organizational meaning a smaller subset of the larger corporation or corporate environment. Again, I focus on or support small business customers, specifically credit card products. We saw our organizational leaders offering us flexible schedules, again, recognizing that each of our home environments are slightly different, and with having children, school age or younger, some of the added stress and pressure that during the pandemic was bringing us, we were offered flexible schedules. We could not necessarily come and go as we please, but we certainly had the flexibility to take time away from our workday to focus on these outside distractions. Employee wellness, in fact, became a KPI, pushing more and more focus on the need to make sure that our employees were doing well and were healthy and had what they needed to maintain a work and a life balance and success there. Our leaders began to show up with far more vulnerability than they had in the past. And what I mean by this simply is they were pulling our organization together, as I know has been done in many work environments, sharing their own personal stories, their own personal challenges at home, and really reflecting on those and showing vulnerability in a way that really humanized our leaders and made each of us connect with them differently than we may have in the past. So creating that connection and that conversation openly is a really powerful leadership moment that we've experienced. And of course, similar to at the corporate level, the priorities shifted very quickly to support our customer specific needs. Working in a company as I do that has many different business entities, many different products and services, again, ours being small business focused, we quickly rallied around, as an example, the payroll protection programs, so PPP lending for small businesses. We've seen small businesses be heavily disrupted and impacted, closing either due to quarantine or perhaps not even being able to reopen during or as a result of quarantine. So we found ourselves in this moment of leadership on behalf of our customers, stepping in, crafting new experiences, new designs, new product and services, while also leveraging existing technology or infrastructure from across our other business partners and other parts of our company very quickly, very rapidly, for the sake of providing this service and this opportunity to our existing customers. And again, it's a really exciting place to be. It's good to know that we can help millions of businesses and business owners stay afloat, keep their doors open, even if technically they may be closed. So this is just a really exciting opportunity for us to lead as an organization and really push that value forward to our customers. At the team level, and this is maybe where I feel like I was mostly involved or experienced the most, but I've seen teams, and teams just being a small group of peers, or it could be a discipline based, again, leading a design team. We found ourselves sharing aspects of our culture, our process, and our discipline, our expertise across our organization with our partners so they could be applied more broadly. We did focus locally on our team members and their well-being, of course. And this can be done in a variety of ways. A simple "how are you doing" can go a long way. But again, making sure that we extend that flexibility of the work schedule. We offer the tools and the resources that might be needed for any specific um, instance or need by any of our team members. It's really critical to us maintaining productivity, but also just maintaining wellness. And with that, we created new or we modified existing team norms around our culture. And this could be something as simple as Zoom or video meeting norms, whether or not video is actually required, because as we all know, we're all on Zoom all day, every day right now. And the burnout and the fatigue that comes with that is pretty extreme, especially a year plus in. So a quick example of that, just to share a story with you. We on our design team pre-pandemic had an existing remote working or a work from home practice. Our team is geographically located in multiple cities or locations, multiple offices. We had already instilled a work from home Friday. So we were actively over the course of a year plus doing this pre-pandemic, we were creating new norms and new tools and new practices to collaborate in a remote setting. And this was an opportunity for us as a team to step up and lead our organization and share with them the best practices that we had already defined and already created. It also brought to our attention the recognition that we as designers had access to applications and tools that the rest of our organization did not. So we really started to focus on those universal tools that we all had access to, and how could we transfer our learning and our remote working, our remote collaboration best practices to these new tools. So Zoom being one that most of us were not necessarily familiar with in the moment, but quickly learned that there was a whiteboard feature as an example. So how do we take our best mural practices as an example and leverage those in Zoom whiteboard? We did this by trial and error. We started leveraging Zoom whiteboard instead of mural in meetings. We led by example and started to share this learning with our partners, who then started to pick up and do the same. We also created documentation about facilitation best practices, how to use the icons or the emoji features, the reaction features, and then also how to communicate in different ways so that we weren't interrupting each other. And these have just started to evolve and take new forms as other teams started to adopt them. And admittedly, they're far better now than they were when we originally created. So that evolution has just been through trial and error and practice. But I'm very proud to say it was our team and our discipline as designers who formulated some of this and was able to bring it to our partners and to our organization. Now, at the individual level, this I've seen so many amazing people step up in so many different ways, and not for the sake of promotion or recognition. I've seen them show up selflessly, step in to support their peers differently. Again, recognizing that a peer who may have 3 children at home and is struggling to hit a deadline, checking on them, asking how they could help, or just stepping in and saying, "Hey, I'm going to take that off your plate and I'm going to do it for you." Stepping in and leading in this selfless manner really, and I focus on the people who you work with, is just really powerful, and it's really inspiring. So taking on these new responsibilities, developing new relationships outside of your core group. Again, maybe this is just simply checking in on someone, asking how they are. We actually created, which is kind of funny, we created a game called Zoom Roulette, where we would just randomly message someone whether we knew them or not. You can just simply type in 2 or 3 characters, get a list of names from your company directory, and just pick one and just reach out and start a conversation. This was a great way for us to be social amidst the quarantine, when many of us were not leaving our houses in the early days, or our apartments. It was a way to meet new people, and it was also a way to just connect and to share your story or to hear from someone else. And in doing so, we were finding solutions for problems that previously they just did not exist. With that, I want to focus a little bit on some of the positives that have come out of all of this, some of the learning through the pandemic. One of those, of course, it's not only that our workday would be televised, we're again all on Zoom on repeat all day long. I'm sure many of you have this sort of view, maybe not in the television, but on your screen all day. I know I'm back to back in Zoom meetings from 8:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening, 5 days a week at the very least. Um, but we've seen some really great trends come out of this at the same time. Some of them might include, as I mentioned, some Zoom um, best practices, which could be maybe the video isn't required. Can we have our one-on-one conversations or our meetings while we go on a walk? We can call in through Zoom instead of being on video. So forcing people away from their desk or away from their computer screen, just a nice idea there. But I think more importantly, our lives have also been televised. And what I mean by this very simply is we start to welcome these life distractions into our meetings and into our workplace. We've met our coworkers' children, their partners, their family members, their pets. We've all experienced, either by witness or because it's happened to us, moments during meetings, and always the worst possible moment for a child or a pet or some sort of distraction to come in. But again, it humanizes all of us. It level sets all of us, and it grounds us all in kind of the same baseline. So these are always fun moments. I think they at first were very embarrassing, but they've just become part of the new norm. Understanding that the children or the pet are just going to randomly run through. I'm sure there's been many embarrassing moments, but again, something to look back on and laugh about. And with that, just from a leadership perspective, I want to draw a note here that during this time, this pandemic, we really all have been normalized and our levels have been reset. We really find ourselves being one and the same. So even VPs or executives, we see them perhaps not having had a haircut in 6+ months, or for the men, maybe not shaving, and growing beards. We see, if we are dressing for work, it's most likely, it's pretty, I'm fairly confident, it's party up top and it's very casual down below, or business up top, party down below. I know me personally, I don't think I wore a pair of long pants for 9 months. And oddly enough, now that the weather's warming, I suddenly am wearing long pants again. Interesting side fact. But the important thing here is that, by being on Zoom, by not being geographically centered as we collaborate and we meet, we've actually found that a lot of our team members and a lot of our peers feel more connected, less siloed, or less alone in moments than they did previously when we were all in the office. And this is a really interesting side effect here, where because we are all grounded in the same environment, even though we may all be in different parts of the country or perhaps the world like we are today, we are all here and we're kind of one and the same. You're seeing my background here, you're seeing a view into my life, into my office. And could I see everyone on the screen, I'd be doing the same. And it's a really powerful moment. And it's just become part of the norm now. We wouldn't have had that without the pandemic. So again, maybe there is a silver lining to some of this. And my hope is that we will take that into the next new normal as we start to see vaccines become more readily available, as we see our business leaders, our corporate leaders start to discuss how we will return to the office, and what that will look like. So it begs the question, how does leadership change post-pandemic? And my perspective, my hope in truth, is that it really doesn't. We've seen leaders show up with humanity, with vulnerability. We've provided our workforce with flexibility, and we've focused on their well-being and their health. Now, granted, that's not to say that we don't focus on business revenue. We don't not focus on our customers or progressing our business and our features, our products. But this added attention to each of us as humans and kind of being grounded in this new environment is something that we absolutely should be pushing forward and taking with us once we do return to the office. So flexibility at work, what might that look like? Well, if we're able to have some flexibility in our core hours, why would we not continue that? We recognize that people inherently, some are night owls, some are early risers. Does the 9 to 5 really work anymore? Let's reconsider that. Meeting norms. Let's not lose sight of things that I'm sure, this is not new to anyone here, but shorter meetings. Is the meeting actually required? Do we start it 5 minutes late or end it 10 minutes early instead of having it be a full 30-minute or 60-minute block? These are all practical norms that have come to light during the pandemic that I think we all would like to see move forward. Things like no meeting days. Again, this is something that we've started to create. Honestly, it's hard to follow them a lot of the times, but having a day that is really focused on work, not on meetings, not being on video, not having that video fatigue. It's becoming a day to look forward to. And again, I hope that this is something we can carry forward. We've also created Invest in Yourself days. This is something that I first heard of many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, from some friends of mine who worked at LinkedIn at the time. And the idea here is just one day a month, one day cadence of your choice. For us, it's a month, but these work hours are given back to the employees to focus on what they need in that moment. And that could range very widely, especially during our pandemic, from career development, attending a conference like this. It could be spending time with my family. It could be meditating. It could be exercising. It could be anything in between. But having that opportunity is really valuable for all of the employees who are taking part in it, and certainly something I hope we don't lose sight of. And the truth be told, remote working is here to stay. And I don't mean that it is the all-in only way to work, that offices are no longer needed, or our campuses for some of the larger companies. I'm excited to go back to the office personally. I miss social interaction and personal physical interaction, a room full of people at a whiteboard ideating. I can't wait to get back to that. But at the same time, I also appreciate the flexibility, as I know many do, of being able to work from home. So perhaps a hybrid model becomes the new norm. Perhaps a hybrid model where maybe you're only in the office half the week or a set number of days, and the rest is TBD or up to you. Work from home or work from anywhere. I've actually heard stories more recently, again, as people are starting to get vaccinated, of several people taking opportunities to have more of a vagabond lifestyle. I'm very jealous of this, but recognizing that as long as there's internet connection, I can do my job. And therefore, I'm going to get in my car or an RV or a van, and I'm going to drive. And I'm going to see the country. And maybe this is a good time to do that because parks are less crowded, or monuments are less crowded. I haven't seen them lately, so I'm not sure if that's the case, but these opportunities are there, and I hope that they continue to exist. This is an article from LinkedIn that I saw about a week ago. And the other thing I'd like to add, and the reason I highlighted it, is because many companies, I think, may be considering this as a cost savings benefit. This company, and what drew my attention to this article, is that they're actually using those cost savings to give back to the employees, increasing benefits, increasing perks. They even call out including student loan assistance for qualified employees as a benefit, that they're using that cost saving money to pay it forward to their employees. Which brings me to the new office space for those of us who want to or who will be returning to the office. What does that even look like? What does social distancing look like in the future, and how long might we be wearing masks? What is the open floor plan that we've all come accustomed to become? Are we able to just walk up and have a collaborative conversation any longer? Are we able to sit in these communal spaces, or do we revert back to something like this? I hope not. I hope this is not the case, that we confide ourselves into walls and have dividers. But what does this look like? I truly don't know. I'm very curious about this topic specifically, and I hope that the leaders, many levels higher than myself, have answers. And lastly, I hope that all of us show up as leaders and continue to be human. Beyond the office perks, beyond the free food, the snacks, the gyms, that we continue to focus on the wellness and the well-being of the employees, of the associates, of our peers. And we continue to show up as our true selves, and we continue to be vulnerable with each other. And just one last thought, because I know I'm sure I'm getting close to time. Just a reminder, being a leader is not defined by your level, by your title. We all have opportunities to be found, to step up, to step in, to make an impact, and to create additional value. And so I hope everyone moving forward, if you're not already, and I'm sure most of you are, will find those opportunities, find those moments to step in and to have a positive impact and to inspire and inform others. So thank you. I will pause there, and if there's questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Robert. Go ahead and stop sharing your screen. And please give Robert a big thank you in the chat box. Remember that if you put it to all panels and attendees, then everyone can see it. Awesome. All right. So on to our next presenter. Let me mention before I introduce our next presenter, just a reminder, right, we are using the Q&A box when we have time for questions. Most of the speakers, we should have time for questions. Unfortunately, I have to clear out the Q&A box in between so that we don't have the confusion about which question was for which speaker. So I've just done that now. Also a reminder that we prioritize the questions that are upvoted, so take a look at that when we get to the end of the talk to see which ones you'd like to upvote. All right, so for our next speaker, oops, fix that. Fix this too. All right. All right, for our next speaker, this is